So, who's ever wanted to learn how to paint a poppy? These are such a beautiful flower. We're going to show you how to do it in this April 7-day flower challenge. Make sure that you use the hashtag flower challenge KC. And here is a full list of all of the flowers that we're covering in these 7 days. Now, remember, if you can't do this right now, don't worry. This video and all the other ones will be up on YouTube, so you can pop back in at a later time if you need to. But please make sure you still use the hashtag and make sure to tag me at Chasse_fine art on Instagram, because once the challenge is over, I probably won't be going back in to view the hashtag quite as much. So if you want me to see it, just make sure you do that, and I'll be sure to still share it in my stories for you. All right, so if you're ready to paint a poppy, let's get going. Hi everyone, welcome back to day 4 of our 7-day April flower challenge. Woo woo, you guys are doing awesome. I've been seeing some of you post some of your work on Instagram, and I am just so blown away at some of the stuff that you guys do, and I'm so proud of you for stepping up to the challenge and putting your stuff out there, because it's hard, especially when you're new or you're just learning how to paint. It's always a little scary to throw yourself out there. So good for you. And you know what? That's how we learn. It's the only way you can get better is by challenging yourself and doing things, right? Plus, painting can just be so therapeutic if you're not thinking about everything all the time. Yesterday was a little stressful for me, and my flower showed it. By the way, Mom's doing fine. She's going in today and getting her wrist checked. They think that she might have a small fracture. Her ribs are not broken, yay! And she ended up with just one little staple in her head. Oh gosh. So she's good. She's doing good. I talked to her this morning. Everything is good. She's just healing up, and she's just gonna take it easy. She's in Florida, so they get to spend the time on the beach, and that's a good thing. All right, so I did go back to unsplash.com and searched for poppies, and I thought this one would be a fun one to do. I like the way the little intricate details are in the middle of this one. So this one might take us a little bit longer to do. I'm going to sketch it out here for you. And let me just show you. Again, I just kind of took a look at it again just to see, before we start, what we need to do. So again, you can see that flower shape is more of an egg shape. I think, do I want to make that a little bit bigger? I think I'll make that a little bit bigger on a page. So that's a great thing about having an iPad, is you can use it to make things a little bit larger or smaller. So I have more of an egg. This is more of an egg shape. Let's make it a little bit larger. Now you can see when I'm doing this, when I pencil in, I don't stop and make that perfect circle. I'm just using this, round shape just to try to get that shape in here. And then we can erase all those lines. As long as I have my eraser. Where is my eraser? Because I'll definitely need my eraser. There it is. And I'm not erasing anything right now. I'm definitely not using this, because this will turn your paper pink or orange. So you want to use an artist need eraser, or I love my little, these are inexpensive. I get them at, I think Staples has them. It's a polypropylene eraser. But again, you got to be careful when you're erasing on paper, because watercolor paper is a sensitive little stuff. All right, so we've got our egg shape in. Do I want to make that bigger? I'm still looking at it. If I have the stem coming down here, I think that's good. Well, I can bring the petals out a little bit more. All right, and then the second part is we have this little piece in here. So again, it's off-centered. It's maybe about here, that circular shape again, and then it's like a little mushroom shape under here. Okay, and then we won't do any of, well, we'll throw a few of them in here, I guess. These are the little, what are those? I guess that's where the pollen is, kind of sticking out. So just gonna lightly sketch it in there. And then this has a little circle here, and it's got, I don't know what these little things are. I don't know the names of flowers or all the parts. I bet you don't either, do you? I'm trying to get those angled correctly. So I think that's about right. This is actually almost a square shape in the center. But we paint that in. Can make that a little bit bigger, I think. I guess it's a circle. It's kind of circular. That's good. I can make it a little bit bigger. I don't want to do too much drawing. I tend to spend a lot of time on the drawing, and sometimes I just want to be a little bit more free with stuff. All right, and then the last piece here, and I'm going to take these off just, whoops, just so you can see it, are those petals. So we have a petal that's coming up here and kind of has this little loop-de-loop, and then comes down around, and then it comes back up. This is more pointed, and it's going to come down here, and then it looks like it's about here. So we'll make this a little circular. So that's one petal. Then we have these other petals starting from here. So we're going to come up, and again, they're a little wavy. And if you look at ends, just below this part here, so if I take this across, I know it's not cutting it off here. I'm going to come down a little bit more, and then I'm going to come under it. Whoops, right here. Erase that one, and then this last petal comes over this one, I guess, a little bit here. And again, it's not perfectly shaped, and then, oops, I think it comes up in here a little bit more. Again, they don't have to be perfect, right? There. So there is our poppy, and we have our little stem here. That's a little thick. I think we have it. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and erase. This is when you erase all of this other stuff that you put in here. It's just much easier instead of trying to erase and put it back in, erase, put it back in. You know, it helps you with your outline. You can see what is in the wrong spot, what's maybe in the right spot, and then you can erase all of this. Again, I'm going to leave it a little bit darker so that you can see it. Normally I would erase that a little bit more. Where did my little fluffy brush go? Here it is. Wipe those off. So we have a really good looking poppy so far. Once again, I'm challenging myself, my 10-inch round faux squirrel brush from Zen Art. I'm giving these a run in this week. So now I'm going to look at where are my darkest colors. Let's do this with this one, with this pen. Where are the darkest colors and where are my lighter values? So you can do this in two ways. I like to start with, when I'm doing flowers and things, a lot of times I'll start with a darker shade and then I'll get lighter, which is completely backwards, because normally you start with your lighter areas and work darker. Does that make sense? But with the flowers, I'm doing layers, so sometimes I just like to go backwards with that because I like to have those deep values in there, and instead of trying to add them on top of those lighter shades, sometimes it's easier for me this way to add the darker values first and then go lighter. So I'll do it both ways just so you can get a gist of what I'm saying. So we'll start with this one petal here, and you can see in this petal, whoops, you can see in this petal, let me add another layer here, where it's darker in this area here, right? And then maybe you have a few little dark areas on the other side. So we'll start with that darker area on this petal, and I'm going to show you what I mean by trying it both ways. And again, it's totally your preference what you want to do. So I'm going to use the red there. This is like an orangey red that we have in our Cotton kit, and I want to get it nice and juicy. Now I do have my little spray bottle where I could just go ahead and spritz all my colors. This is what I usually do just to get them activated. And then I still haven't cleaned out my tray, as you can see. I probably ought to do that because we want this to be there's not many other colors in this one. A little purple. Let's clean out that tray. my pen and, or my brush in my mouth, sorry. Okay, and then I think I'm going to go in with just some water, and I've got a little bit of that color on there so you can see it. And I'm going to wet that whole area. Let's get that a little bit more clean because I want to go lighter in here. I'm going to go around that little stamen because that is... Stamen, is that the word I want? Did it just come to me all of a sudden? I'm going to go around that because this is really light green. And I want to show you, when we talk about water and how wet something is with watercolor, you can see I can wipe off some of that water where I feel like I have too much. And you can see that the paper is nice and shiny. It's not overly drenched. I don't have all these big puddles in here. But when you're doing a wet and wet technique, you do have to have it wet. And you don't want it overly wet so that you get like these big puddles. So if I go into my little bit darker pigment, because I have a little bit of water in there, but I'm just moving that around. And if I tap that on there, you can see how this gets that nice blooming effect. It doesn't go outside this line because there's no water over here. So with watercolor, it only goes where there's water. So I can just very carefully tap this in here. And because it's wet, you can see that nice bleed that it's doing in towards the center. I can go in a little further here maybe. This is again where the darker colors are. I'm not going to add too much to this. Maybe a little in here, and you can almost do that little line shape. But again, because it's so wet, it's just really expanding, so I don't want to go too heavy in here. Let's erase where that dark area is. So you can just kind of peek around. You can see some line work in here, but again, we're not going to do that. We're just going to let the water just do what it wants to do, and we could always add some of that line work in later. And I don't want to fill that in everywhere. Again, I want to just let the paints kind of do their thing. And we'll let that dry. So on this side, we'll do the opposite. So over here, I'm going to go in with that really light shade again. And then we're going to add some darker values to this later. So I can see this is kind of a yellowy color down here. So I'm going to add a little bit of that in here. And again, this is all pretty light. It's probably more red up this way. But I want a fairly light shade in here, and we're going to add the orange on top of this as we get a little darker, because we're going to start light with this one. And then I think for this one, I think we'll leave a little space in here, and I think we can do this one too. So again, let's go with just some clean water. And the edge of this is really, really light, so I'm not going to go right up to the edge of that. And again, if we go in with the darker values first, let that just bleed out a little bit. And maybe spread this around a little bit more out here with that nice light little orange. And let's watch it and see what it's going to do. I'm going to dry this one first, and then we'll go back in with a little bit darker shade. So this one's going to be a little bit different than these two. Okay, let's dry that. Oh, I'm not plugged in. Hold on, I'm going to plug it in. I've been taking this part out anyway, so you don't have to listen to this blow dryer. That took 14 minutes. Woo. If I didn't do so much talking, it wouldn't take me so long. Sorry. All right, so this is all dry, and I'm going to go back in with another color. Let's mix this one up in here. We'll mix a little bit of that yellow with it. And you would think that I'm not even doing this with a little test strip. Usually I have a test strip on the side. I haven't done that all week so far. Let me see if I can find one in my desk here. There we go. I have a little test strip of paper so I can see what color I've got on here. So that's definitely probably maybe a little bit more red. Let's try a little bit of this red in here and see what we get. You can see how that changes the color so quickly. All right, we'll give that one a go. So rinse my brush off again. I'm going to go in with some clean water here, and I am going to add just water on top of this, just wetting this area. Whoops, I guess I still had a little orange in there. I didn't clean that real well. That's all right. So now I'm going to go into that orange that we mixed up, and I'm going to go in and add a little bit of that in there. And this is what we call glazing. So we've got the color underneath that darker value, and then we're adding a little bit lighter shade on top. I almost see like a little pink in here. It's actually a light pink. But because it's wet, we'll just tap a little bit of it in there, and then maybe a little bit darker red in here. I thought I got the darkest value, but I didn't. So I can make a few lines in here if I want. Again, I don't want to go too far down. I don't want to get too much detail in there. That's good. And then we're going to go into this one over here. This one has a lot of orange in it. And once again, we'll just go in through and just create just a little bit of veining in the flower. And again, I have more yellow on here, so let's go right into the yellow so we can get that nice vibrant shade in here. Again, now I probably should have left a little bit of space around those, or I could have used masking fluid, but I'm not doing masking fluid this week. We're just going to go right into it. And in this one, so this is the one that we had started off with lighter, so we're going to go darker with our values. So I'm going to do this orangey shade here as well. Oops, I forgot to wet it. Let's wet it a little bit. And I'm not going to go all the way out to the ends because I want to keep that light yellow right in there. And this is pretty dark in here too, it looks like. So we'll do the bright orange. Again, just tapping in a little bit of it in here. And letting the water take it out to where it wants to go. I don't want to fill it all in. This is more orange here. And this has like a little bit of, probably a little darker yellow. And I can add it right to it while it's wet. And then let's just take some clean water and just blend it a little bit so we don't have those real sharp lines or sharp edges on there. It's pretty orange up here too. And on the edge, just a little bit. I've got a little darker orange here on the edge. I'm just looking around to see if I have any other areas. Oops, let's turn that off. I think that's pretty good. Maybe go a little in here. This is starting to dry, so I can get a little line work in here now. Using that same color. And this is the difference between being really wet and being still slightly wet. You can get some of those details in there, but it's still softening a little bit. It's not quite as, you can see this one's very blobby or blurry. That's the best way to describe it. So I could do this two ways. I could add a little bit of that bright, it's almost like a purpley shade in here now while it's wet. But what will happen with the orange, that might get very muddied because orange and purple will make brown. So let's dry it, see what we get. All right, so I'm going to attempt to make, I don't have opera rose in here, so it's not going to be exactly that color, but let's see how close we can get to it. Maybe a little ultramarine blue along with alizarin crimson. That's pretty dark. It's a dark, dark purple. Not real pinky, is it? Let's try a little of the Chinese white with it and see what we can get. A nice light purple. These are that's one of those colors that really is hard to make. That's probably the closest I'm going to get to it. I added a little bit more red to that. So we're going to get a little detailed here. This is not as pretty as I'd like. We're going to add some black to this too. So these are coming up here as well. That's more like the black steam. You don't really see much of that. And this is really dark in here too. Yeah, that's not my favorite color, is it? Let's go in with a little bit more of this red. Doesn't have to be just like that one, right? If you can't make it, you go as close as you can with something that you like. And I didn't like that. It was just too muddied. Okay, I'm going to dry that, and then we'll go in with some black. So again, if you have like something like an opera rose or something, that will work really well with that color in there. But as I said, I'm going to try to do is just the Cotman kit. You know, you don't have to have all of these colors. This is a great kit to start out with because you don't get as overwhelmed when you're first learning. So I think I'm going to do a little bit of this yellow, bright yellow, yellow green. Where did my center go? This is it right here. And again, I'm not going to fill in that entire area. It's very light in the center. And then this is almost, this color here is more of this color. That's that cad yellow. I couldn't remember what color that was the other day when I was trying to tell you guys. So we'll put a little of that cad yellow in there. And then we'll let that dry. And you can see that's actually a little darker. I'm going to mix up a little bit of the yellow ochre in here just for some shadow down in here. It's a little too wet. Okay, got a lot of white space in here, which I don't really see here, but I left those white so that we could go ahead and put in a little bit of the little stamens or what have you, whatever they're called. So they're not showing up because it's too, I guess as I said, it was too light for that area. So one, masking fluid is good to have, but we can have a workaround. It's called white gouache. Or you can also use a gel pen with that too. So I'm going to go in with my white gouache just a little bit on my brush, and I'm going to dot in some of those little stamens in here. I've got the white, so we can add a little bit of that yellow right on top of it. And that'll get it to pop out. Let's put a couple out here too. Again, doesn't have to be exact. Trying to do a fairly loose one. And I think we'll do a little pen and ink on this too. What do you think? Should we go a little bit deeper with that, with that red? Or do you like that color? It's pretty close. I could go a little bit darker, but I'm gonna leave it again. I'm just gonna, I have a tendency to want to go in and do more, but I'm not gonna. Before I do that, let's go ahead and put in that little stem, a little yellow and green. That's a good color. Okay. And now I'll use this little marker, and we're going to go in and create some of that line work in here. And you can see it's really rounded here. We can probably sketch a little bit of that in, and then we're going to bring out some of those. There's none actually here. It looks like this is maybe curved a little bit here. This is pretty black in here. And then we could always just outline some of those. What do you think? I've got a couple little spots in here too. Let's use the black. And I think we're done. I'm going to erase this line now. I think this is all dry. I almost erased that, and that's still wet. Well, it looks like they're starting to do planes over here on the lake. The water is now out and moving again. Okay, there you go. There's our poppy. This is, where are we, day 4? How did I write that before? Day 4, hashtag flower challenge. 7th. And it's the poppy. Okay guys, I hope you enjoyed it, and we will see you guys for day 5 tomorrow. A violet, which I've done a violet before, and I struggled with a violet before too. There's another YouTube video on that one. I did with alcohol inks, and I also did it with watercolor, and you can see the difference between the two. Then we have the lilac for day 6 and the coneflower for day 7. So I can't wait to see your poppies. Bye.